Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. I'm Eric, the dude who grows food, and today we are going to start harvesting the last of our sweet potatoes. Now, I've already harvested 6 of the beds. They were the main crop, what I'm calling the main crop of the sweet potatoes, and I have one extra bed, full bed of sweet potatoes. And the reason I have this extra one was, one, I had extra slips, and two, I wanted to make sure that I had a crop of sweet potato leaves to eat after I took the main crop out. And now that I've got all my other leaves going, my brassicas, my lettuce, I've still got some chard left over, I don't really need to worry about keeping these sweet potato leaves in production, and I'd like to get them out of the ground now. And let me explain why I got the other ones out when I did. There's 2 reasons. One, they were in the ground for 90 days, so they were ready to go. I put them in around June 1st. I took them out around September 1st. So we had a full June, July, August. Now, with sweet potatoes, to get them to actually be sweet, they need a curing process. And depending on where you read online, the curing process is ostensibly this. They need a week or 2 of hot and humid, and then they need many weeks after that of cool and dry. As to what those temperatures are, they seem to vary a bit. I've heard 90 degrees and 90% humidity, and then for the cooling section, 60 and 60. It seems like it's not really all over the place, but it's not that much of a science for me to do this depending on when I harvest. And here's what I mean by that. If I were to harvest the sweet potatoes in mid-October, before they actually, before the freeze sets in, it's going to be really hard for me to cure those things organically because our hot and humid days are done. By harvesting them in early September, where we still have hot and humid days, all I have to do is leave them in my barn. And in the barn, they're going to be subjected to hot and humid temperatures for a few weeks, and then I can just bring them inside. And this is what I did last year, and I was eating sweet potatoes from last year's harvest until June, July of this year, and that's just by the time I ran out. They were still good. No issue with them at all. So something I did last year worked out really well. I don't remember when I harvested them last year. I don't know if it was as early September or if I did push a bit, but long story short, I want to get these out now because it's actually going to be a pretty good crop, I think, though they went in the ground after the other ones did, though I don't know by how long after. I could check back at some of my other garden tours, and I could probably kind of rough out what week they went in. But we're running out of hot and humid days now. So to that end, I wanted to get them out of the ground so that they can join the others in the barn, maybe in a separate section because the other ones need to go inside at some point since they've been out for a couple weeks, and give them a chance at curing before the cold temperatures really set in. And since I don't need the leaves, like I said, they can come out now. So let me show you what I'm working with. This, my friends, is the last sweet potato patch that I have. Now, I say the last one I have. I actually do have probably a dozen other plants sitting around the garden because I had extra plants and extra space. So, for example, on the other side of the blueberries, against the fence, I think I've probably got 8 or 10 slips planted there. I have no idea what the potato situation looks like in the ground under there, but they're just still going, and they're out of the way, so I'm not worried about it. But this is the main patch I want to get out today. And yeah, I want to get it out today because we do have rain coming up in the next few days. It might take me a couple of days because I do have someone coming to the property to do some work, and I'll have to pay attention to that. But the biggest challenge with harvesting sweet potatoes, honestly, is getting the vines out. So what I found myself doing was grabbing hunks of vines, grabbing my pruners, chopping them, throwing them in in a garbage can, walking them out into the ground area, just dumping them and mowing them in, collecting them for compost later. I found that to be the easiest way to dispose of them as opposed to trying to get them in a compost pile. The chickens really don't seem to eat these things. So from that standpoint, there's a lot of vines here, and turning them into compost piles, not fun. So I'd much rather just throw these in the lawn, mow them out, and deal with them at that point. But once they're out of the way, it's a lot easier to harvest. But I do know from harvesting those 6 beds that I had that the vine removal process is kind of the heavy one. So let's get prepared for that now. So we've got the garbage can and the pruners. And I basically just grab hunks of vine, I start chopping at it, throw them in the bucket. When the bucket gets full, I haul it out, lather, rinse, repeat. And what I think I'll do for video purposes is we'll take out a chunk of this bed on the side that we're at right now, and then we'll go ahead and get closer in and see what kind of piles we have down at the base of the plants. And there we go, we've got some space to work here, and when I cut around the base of the plant, I try to leave a little bit of stem so I kind of have an idea if there's anybody hanging out there. You can see my spacing on these was tight, if I'm not mistaken, and I think I've got more plants up in the north section than here in the south section, but you can see that we've got maybe 8 inches between the plants. And I did that because I wasn't overly worried about my yields in this area because my main crop was going to be my main crop. I was really more concerned with just making sure I got as many of the slips into the ground at a reasonable time as I could. And yeah, plenty of greens left over, so clearly I didn't need this bed from that standpoint. But hey, you know, more sweet potatoes is better than fewer sweet potatoes in my mind. So let's get down in here and see what we can find. Now, right off the bat on this one, I don't believe that this was necessarily a planting. This may just be residual rooting from the vines going outward, but there's still going to be things in here that are going to be legitimately edible, though they may be difficult to get out of the ground. One of the biggest challenges I have with sweet potatoes is the fact that no matter how deep my organic matter is on the surface, as they grow, they'll penetrate into the clay beneath it, and that is basically like concrete, especially when it gets dry. So I get a lot of broken. Now, broken's not an issue. It still cures just fine. It's just a little aggravating to know I got little pieces down there that I'm not going to be able to eat. But then again, I mean, come on, I've got like, what, 700 pounds in the barn right now, so leaving a couple ounces behind probably isn't the end of the world. Plus, I'm guessing the decomposition is going to be good for the soil. Yeah, so I think these were all part of a trailing vine that was just kind of setting roots down and tapping in. This is all edible though. I mean, I've got a lot of these. I'll eat these before I'll even eat they seem to cure faster than some of the big honkers that come out of the garden, so I'll eat through these before I get to the big rugby balls. So yeah, that big root coming off, this is as unappetizing as this might be, and as tricky as it might be to cook it to get it tender after it cures, because there's a lot more skin than in a typical sweet potato. Like the skin to flesh ratio is quite different. I've cooked these up before, and they have a tendency to be a little tough, but this is all edible. And then at the end, you've got a pretty nice little guy. But all in all, if you looked at what we just harvested out of here, that's basically found food, and if I threw that on a scale, that might be, you know, a half a pound of sweet potatoes, maybe a little less, but I mean, you can argue with that. Oh, and there's more to come. Now, is that it? I have no idea, but, you know, not a terrible start to the process, but we're going to go over in that direction because I see one popping out of the ground that might be a pretty good size. And come on, we watch these videos, we do it to see the really amazing hauls, right? Not these little rinky-dink things. Though in reality, quite a bit of the rinky-dink things is what actually takes place. So you've got to take the really amazing hauls with the really subpar ones, because it's just part of the game. But we're gonna clean around this guy best we're able, and you can see this is where the original stem was. And we're going to go ahead and cut that back out. And again, he's going to have something attached, and I can already feel it snapping and breaking. So, yeah. There we go. More of that nonsense. But let's see what this guy wants to do. There's a nice little piece. There's another runner. I think this is the bottom of the one we just broke. We got his half, and then this guy. I'm not sure which direction he, oh, there he went. Yeah, not a bad little sweet potato. And this is in excess of everything that I've got sitting in the barn, so I can't complain about that. Plus, they weren't in the ground for as long, like I said. So yeah, it's, we got something fun going on here. And so we are now cleared of all of our sweet potato vines. From the patch you saw me harvesting a second ago, this is the yield. Nothing to write home about, kind of about what I expected. I don't think this bed is nutritionally overly sound. I think I need to put some compost on this one. It didn't perform that great, but I will say this also. These, the last 2 weeks of August through today were the last 3 days have been very, very warm. Prior to that, we kind of had a bit of an unseasonable coolness. The last 2 weeks of August, first 2 weeks of September, I had a lot of nights in the mid to low to high 50s. And this is a tropical crop. So even though this one was in the ground for maybe only a week shorter than the ones in the north bed, I expect lower performance out of this, primarily due to a lack of nighttime temperatures. That's going to be my guess. It could also be a nutrition thing. The beds to the north side have a lot more decomposed organic matter. These are a little drier, a little more gravelly. So I'll feed this bed some compost after this is all cleared out. But I'm going to guess that it was the nighttime temps that really kind of stunted the growth out here. But again, this was just extra planting, so it really doesn't matter what the performance is. And before we go too far, let's say hello to this little guy here, who I so rudely interrupted his existence by tearing out all of those leaves. Sorry, buddy. You have to go somewhere else now. So yeah, now it's time for me to go ahead and harvest all of these. I'll probably start where I left off in the back, work my way to the front. I'll probably just actually sit right in the bed, pull the soil back to me, and work around the base of every plant in wide arcs so that I can damage things as little as possible, and then backfill with the rake as I clear more and more ground until it's level again. And then I'll dump probably 4 or 5 buckets worth of compost, maybe a full wheelbarrow full of compost on this one. Wood chip the pathways again to the right and left and call it done. So when the final of everything is done, we'll go ahead and pick this back up. My phone overheated earlier, so it's not going to be a shoot and watch segment with a lot of montage, unfortunately for you, because I know you love the music on that. But yeah, we'll go ahead and pick this up once everything's harvested and get a rough idea of how much we pulled out of the ground. So I will see you then. It's hot out here, folks. We caught another 90-degree day today. I say another 90. I think it was 88 yesterday, 88 the day before. And in a couple days, it's going to be about 73, so comes and goes, ups and downs. But I successfully finished the project. Successfully as of now. Everything's out of the ground. The ground's leveled, it's ready for more compost, this pathway is ready for some wood chips, but let me show you what we got, and it is not that impressive. So that's the final haul. I don't want to discount what I did here. I mean, there is a fair amount of food. I do believe we're probably going to be somewhere in the 60-pound range, maybe. I say that because I'm probably looking at 3 solid 5-gallon buckets worth, and yeah, that, each time I've weighed a 5-gallon bucket, depending on how much sort of airspace is in there, if I fill it to the top, they usually come in between 20 and 25. A guy like this, for example, that's a pretty good size. I'm guessing he on his own is going to be a good solid 1.5 pounds. So it's not unreasonable to think that there's about 60 pounds in here. As a courtesy, I will, for the video, throw these in buckets, bring them up to the house, put them on the house scale, and then bring them back down to the barn. A little extra carrying, but hey, it's good exercise. I did notice an abnormally large amount of these long, thin guys. Again, totally edible and actually kind of easier to cut up than the big ones. It'll cure probably about the same rate, maybe a little faster. But yeah, I could dice it right down, cut some pieces in half, and air fry up easily enough. I'm not unhappy with this. This isn't a bad haul. And honestly, when I actually looked at the bed when I first started breaking it down, this back section here on which these are, in this section, I don't think I actually had that many plants. I think I started probably right around here. So this could have been another 7 or 8 plants for another 10 to 15 pounds. So again, it was probably a little behind my other beds. Yeah, all good. So, took him inside, we weighed him, and we scored 55 pounds out of that bed. Now, like I said, it wasn't a great haul. I wasn't expecting it once I started digging in. The bed wasn't entirely full, so another few plants, we probably could have got to 65, 70 pounds. Again, well shy of where the other beds performed, but for what it was, I can't complain. So I hope you enjoyed what you saw today. If you did, feel free to give it a like. If you want to talk sweet potatoes, I love this conversation. Start some chatter in the comments. Until next time, thanks for watching. Take care.